Hey Leo, I need to share something with you today because the energy coming through these cards is really speaking to a profound shift that's happening for you right now. You know how sometimes you can just feel when something fundamental is changing in your life? Like the air feels different, your thoughts flow differently, even your body responds to situations in a new way. That's what I'm picking up for you. And I want to walk through this reading with you because I think you're going to recognize yourself in these cards immediately, so I shuffled my deck specifically, asking about Leo energy and this concept of karmic lightness, when the universe stops throwing the same lessons at you over and over because you've actually learned them. And what came through was so clear that I literally had to pause before I started this reading because the message is that powerful. You're not just changing Leo, you're transforming at a cellular level. And the signs are everywhere if you know what to look for. The first card I pulled for you is the Emperor. And can I just say how perfect this is for you? Because Leo, you've always had this natural authority about you, this ability to command a room just by walking into it. But here's what the Emperor is showing me about your current transformation, and this is going to resonate deeply. For so long, you've been leading from a place of having to prove something. There was this underlying current of needing to demonstrate your worth, your capability, your right to be in charge. And that energy, that constant need to validate yourself through external achievement, that was part of your karmic pattern. But look at what's shifting now. The Emperor in this position is telling me that you're moving into a completely different relationship with your own power. You're starting to understand that true sovereignty doesn't require constant proof. Real leadership isn't about dominating every situation or making sure everyone knows you're in control. It's about being so secure in your own authority that you don't need anyone else to confirm it for you. And I'm seeing that you've been having these moments lately where you've stepped back from situations that you would have normally jumped into, not because you're insecure or doubting yourself, but because you're learning to discern where your energy actually needs to go. This is huge for you, Leo. Because one of your karmic lessons has been about the difference between ego-driven leadership and authentic sovereignty. The old pattern was about filling up that inner emptiness with external validation, with applause, with recognition. But what's happening now is that you're finding that validation from within. You're becoming your own source of approval. And that shift is literally changing your molecular structure. When you stop needing the world to bow down to you and you start simply being the emperor of your own life, everything transforms. The desperation falls away. The exhausting need to control every narrative disappears. And what emerges is this calm, centered, unshakable authority that people feel drawn to naturally. I'm also seeing with the Emperor that you're learning about healthy boundaries in a way you never have before. Part of your karma was about taking on too much responsibility for other people's journeys. You're a fire sign. You want to save everyone, lead everyone, show everyone the way. But that was draining you and keeping you stuck in a pattern of overextension. Now you're learning that you can be generous and powerful without sacrificing yourself. You can lead without losing yourself. And this recalibration of where you end and others begin, that's a major sign that your karma is lightening. You're no longer carrying weight that was never yours to carry. The second card that came through for you is Justice. And oh, Leo, this card is so significant for where you are right now. Justice isn't just about fairness in the external world. It's about the universal law of cause and effect. And it's showing up to tell you that you're finally seeing the returns on all the inner work you've been doing. You know how sometimes it feels like you're putting in all this effort to grow and change and nothing seems to shift? And then suddenly all at once everything clicks into place? That's what's happening for you now. Justice is telling me that the universe has been watching you make different choices. All those times over the past several months or even years where you caught yourself falling into old patterns and you consciously chose differently, even when it was uncomfortable. Those moments where you wanted to react from ego but you paused and responded from wisdom instead. The times you wanted to people please or perform for approval, but you stayed authentic to yourself instead. Every single one of those choices created a shift in your karmic field, and now the scales are balancing in your favor. Here's what's really beautiful about Justice appearing in your reading. This card is confirmation that you're not imagining the shift you're feeling. The lightness you're experiencing, the sense that life is flowing more easily, the feeling that you're not fighting upstream anymore, that's all real. You've genuinely moved into a different energetic frequency, and the universe is responding to that. Things that used to be hard for you are becoming easier. Opportunities are appearing with less force and more grace. Relationships are either evolving to match your new vibration or naturally falling away without drama. I'm also picking up with justice that you're developing this incredible ability to see situations clearly, without the distortion of your ego or your wounds. You used to take everything so personally, Leo. If someone didn't recognize your brilliance, if a situation didn't go your way, if people didn't appreciate what you brought to the table, it would trigger this whole spiral of self-doubt or defensive pride. But now you're seeing things as they actually are, not as your wounded inner child interprets them. And that clarity, that ability to witness life without constantly filtering it through your need to be special, that's freedom. That's what karmic lightness feels like. Justice is also speaking to me about how you're finally understanding that your worth isn't something you have to earn or defend. It just is. The universe isn't judging you. It's not keeping score in the way you thought it was. It's simply reflecting back to you the energy you're putting out. And now that you're putting out this more balanced, more authentic, more self-assured energy, life is meeting you there. The struggle is ending not because the external world is changing, but because you are no longer in conflict with yourself. That internal war is over, and the peace you're feeling is the natural result of that inner reconciliation. Now the third card, 6 of Swords, appeared, and I actually got chills when I turned this one over, because it's literally the card of transition and moving toward calmer waters. Leo, you're in passage right now. You're leaving behind old versions of yourself, old stories, old identities that no longer serve you. And I know that transition can feel uncomfortable sometimes because you're not quite who you were, but you're not fully who you're becoming yet either. You're in that in-between space, and it can feel vulnerable. But here's what 6 of Swords wants you to understand. This journey you're on, this movement away from your karmic patterns and toward a lighter way of being, it's being guided. You might feel like you're doing this alone, like it's all on you to figure out how to navigate these changes, but there's a current carrying you that's bigger than your individual effort. You're being supported by forces you can't see, by the momentum of your own soul's evolution. Every choice you've made to heal, to grow, to be more conscious has created this wave that's now carrying you forward. What I love about 6 of Swords in your reading is that it's telling me you're ready to leave the mental battleground behind. Leo, so much of your suffering has been self-created through overthinking, through replaying situations, through the constant mental commentary about whether you're good enough, successful enough, impressive enough. Your mind has been both your greatest asset and your greatest prison. But you're learning to quiet that noise. You're developing the ability to be present without needing to analyze or control everything. I'm seeing that you're also releasing a lot of grief with 6 of Swords. Grief for the time you feel you wasted in old patterns. Grief for relationships that couldn't evolve with you. Grief for versions of yourself that you had to let die so that this new you could emerge. And it's okay to feel that sadness, Leo. It's okay to honor what was even as you move toward what's next. The 6 of Swords says you can hold both the gratitude for your journey and the readiness to move beyond it. They're not mutually exclusive. This card is also showing me that you're becoming more comfortable with not having all the answers. You used to need to know exactly where you were going, to have the whole path mapped out, to feel in control of your destination. But now you're learning to trust the process. You're understanding that sometimes the fog is necessary, that not seeing 10 steps ahead forces you to stay present with this one step, this one moment, this one breath. And that presence, that willingness to navigate life without needing to control the entire journey, that's a massive sign of karmic evolution. The 4th card is Temperance. And Leo, if there was ever a card that speaks to the integration and balance you're achieving, this is it. Temperance is all about alchemy, about taking different parts of yourself that used to be in conflict and blending them into something new and whole. And I'm seeing that you're doing exactly that right now. You're integrating your light and your shadow. You're finding the sweet spot between confidence and humility. You're learning to be both fierce and gentle, both strong and vulnerable, both ambitious and content. For so long, you operated in extremes. You were either all in or all out, either performing at maximum capacity or completely burned out, either the star of the show or invisible in the background, either saving everyone or pushing everyone away. Those extremes were part of your karmic pattern, that all-or-nothing energy that kept you swinging between highs and lows without ever finding sustainable middle ground. But temperance is showing me that you're discovering the power of moderation, of balance, of the middle path. This doesn't mean you're becoming bland or losing your fire, Leo. Absolutely not. What it means is that you're learning to channel that fire more consciously. You're not burning yourself out anymore by constantly running at maximum intensity. You're pacing yourself. You're understanding that sustainable success, sustainable relationships, sustainable joy all require this ability to find equilibrium. And I'm seeing that this balance is extending into every area of your life. In your relationships, you're no longer swinging between total enmeshment and cold distance. You're learning to be close while maintaining your individuality. In your work, you're not riding the roller coaster of manic productivity followed by crashes anymore. You're finding a rhythm that honors both your ambition and your need for rest. In your emotional life, you're not being hijacked by intense feelings as often. You're able to feel deeply while also maintaining perspective. This is mastery, Leo. This is what happens when karma lightens, when you're no longer being whipped around by unconscious patterns. Temperance is also speaking to me about healing. You're in a deep healing phase right now, and it's not the dramatic kind of healing where everything falls apart and gets rebuilt. It's the quiet kind, the cellular kind, where old wounds are being tended to with such gentleness and care that the healing happens almost imperceptibly. You're forgiving yourself. You're forgiving others. You're releasing the resentments and the grudges that were keeping you chained to the past. And with each release, you become lighter. With each act of forgiveness, you reclaim energy that was locked up in old stories. The fifth card, 9 of Swords, might seem concerning at first. But hear me out, because this card is actually showing something really important about your transformation. Yes, the 9 of Swords is about anxiety and mental anguish. But in this reading, it's appearing to show you what you're leaving behind. It's a marker of where you've been, not where you're going. And I think it's showing up so you can recognize how far you've actually come. Leo, you've spent so much time in mental torment, lying awake at night, replaying conversations, worrying about what people think of you, catastrophizing about the future, beating yourself up over past mistakes. Your mind has been a battlefield. And the 9 of Swords represents all those sleepless nights where your thoughts spiraled into dark places. But here's what's significant about this card appearing now in a reading about karmic lightness. You're recognizing these patterns. You're seeing them clearly, and most importantly, you're not being controlled by them anymore. I'm picking up that you're developing this ability to witness your anxious thoughts without becoming them. You notice when your mind starts spinning into worry. And instead of getting swept away in the current, you can step back and observe it. You can say, oh, that's my anxiety talking, that's my old pattern trying to reassert itself, but it's not the truth. This level of awareness, this capacity to separate from your thoughts, that's enormous growth, Leo. That's the kind of shift that changes everything. The 9 of Swords is also showing me that you're done suffering unnecessarily. You used to almost identify with your struggles, like they made you deep or interesting or worthy of compassion. But you're realizing that suffering isn't noble. It's just suffering, and you have the power to choose differently. You have the power to redirect your mind when it goes to dark places. You have the power to ask for help when you need it instead of martyring yourself in silence. You have the power to challenge the catastrophic thoughts instead of accepting them as truth. What I find really powerful about the 9 of Swords in your reading is that it's confirmation, that your mental patterns are shifting. The nightmares, both literal and metaphorical, are losing their grip on you. You're sleeping better. You're worrying less. You're not torturing yourself with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios as much as you used to. And when those thoughts do come up, they don't have the same power over you. They're just thoughts. They're not reality. They're not prophecy. They're just the residue of old fears, and you're learning to let them pass through you without giving them so much weight. The final card, Eight of Cups, is absolutely perfect as the closing message of this reading, because it speaks to the courage it takes to walk away from what no longer serves you. Leo, you're in a phase where you're actively choosing to leave behind situations, relationships, beliefs, and patterns that keep you stuck in old karmic cycles. And I know that's not easy. I know that sometimes it feels like you're giving up or being selfish or disappointing people. But the Eight of Cups is telling you that this walking away is actually the most spiritually mature thing you can do. You can't transform while clinging to the old. You can't become the new version of yourself while desperately holding on to who you used to be. The Eight of Cups is about having the wisdom to recognize when something has run its course, and the courage to move on, even when the path ahead is uncertain. And I'm seeing that you've been doing exactly this. You've been making brave choices to release what's familiar but unfulfilling in favor of what's unknown but aligned with your highest good. What strikes me about the Eight of Cups in your reading is the energy of emotional maturity that's coming through. You're not running away from things in reactivity or fear. You're making conscious, deliberate choices to redirect your energy toward what actually nourishes your soul. Maybe it's a job that looks great on paper but leaves you feeling empty. Maybe it's relationships where you've outgrown each other but you've been hanging on out of loyalty or habit. Maybe it's beliefs about yourself that you inherited but never actually examined. Whatever it is, you're finding the strength to say, "This isn't serving me anymore, and I choose something different." Eight of Cups also speaks to me about your willingness to disappoint people in service of your own evolution. That's been a huge karmic lesson for you, Leo. Learning that you can't live your life trying to be what everyone else needs you to be. You've spent so much energy managing other people's perceptions, making sure everyone sees you a certain way, performing the role of the confident, successful, always together Leo. But that performance was exhausting, and it was keeping you trapped. Now you're letting people see the real you, even if the real you is still figuring things out, still learning, still evolving. And paradoxically, this authenticity is making you more magnetic, not less. I'm also seeing with the Eight of Cups that you're learning to trust your inner knowing over external validation. You're starting to make decisions based on what feels right in your gut, in your heart, in your soul, even when it doesn't make logical sense, or when other people don't understand. That's such a powerful shift, Leo, because it means you're no longer giving away your authority to others. You're not outsourcing your decisions to people who don't have to live with the consequences. You're taking full ownership of your life, and that ownership is liberating. The signs that your karma is lightening are everywhere. You're noticing that life feels less heavy, less like a constant struggle. You're attracting different types of experiences and people. You're responding to challenges with more wisdom and less reactivity. You're feeling more like yourself than you ever have before, but it's a self that's been refined, purified, evolved through experience. The old cycles that used to catch you every time, they're not hooking you anymore. You see them coming, and you choose differently. What I want you to take away from this reading is that you're doing it, Leo. You're actually doing the work. You're breaking the patterns. You're healing the wounds. You're stepping into a version of yourself that isn't defined by karma, but by conscious choice. And yes, there will still be challenges ahead because that's life. But you're meeting those challenges from a completely different place now. You're not the